You've got some nerve, with your high school dropout status. We won't sign a contract with you. Get out immediately. Forget it. We're not interested either. You'll regret this, you subcontractors. Regret? I was about to retort when Emily gently patted me on the shoulder. Chris, that's enough. Let's leave. What? Yes, leave right now. You high school dropouts don't know your place. You're the one who doesn't know your place. You'll regret what happened today. Watch out, Mrs. Brown. With a sly smile, she turned away. My name is Chris. I work for a small textile manufacturer in a rural area. I started as a factory worker, but now I'm in sales. Our company, though small, is valued for producing fabrics for famous brands. We handle a wide range of textiles, from synthetic ones like polyester, polyurethane, and rayon to natural fibers like cotton and linen. I joined this company after dropping out of high school. There was a reason for leaving high school. My father was a police officer, and my mother was an elementary school teacher. But my father got involved in an incident and passed away. The stress from that event took its toll on my mother, and she fell ill and also passed away. I was taken in by my grandparents. But they were already living off their pension, and making ends meet was challenging. They encouraged me to at least finish high school. But with the household finances so tight, I gave up and decided to work. In those times, finding a job as a high school dropout was nearly impossible. I sent resumes to every company I could, and eventually, Mr. Johnson, CEO, from this manufacturer gave me an interview. When he asked why I had to work after dropping out of high school, I answered honestly, and he hired me as a factory worker on a part-time basis. Since then, he kept an eye on me and treated me like a son. A few years later, he made me a full-time employee and moved me from factory work to sales. Because of Mr. Johnson's generosity, I plan to dedicate my life to this company. For my late parents, the grandparents who raised me, and Mr. Johnson who supported me, I aim to live each day striving to become a better person. Then one day, a new employee joined us. Hi, I'm Emily. Looking forward to working with you. She was petite, without any makeup, and wore big round glasses. Her hair was styled in an unusual pigtail fashion. Overall, she gave a quiet impression. Surprisingly, she wanted to work as a factory hand. Most women at our company usually apply for office jobs. Factory work involves handling dangerous machinery, so it was unusual to see a woman seek it out. It became a topic among employees. At first, we wondered if she'd last, but our concerns were unfounded. Emily quickly adapted to machinery operation and learned rapidly. Her performance was well received. Chris, the materials for the upcoming negotiation are ready. I took the materials from Kate in the office and thanked her. But I sighed. The next Bussiness meeting that I will use these materials is with a major company called Shiny. Shiny is a popular fashion brand for high school and college girls, with stores nationwide and a robust online presence. Their new products are always in high demand, often selling out immediately. Shiny is a dream brand for many girls, known by everyone. A collaboration with a famous designer was also planned, and I had to negotiate and present on that. But I was dreading this negotiation because of who I'd be dealing with. Shiny's CEO, Mrs. Brown, handles the negotiations herself. She's a difficult partner, always looking down on subcontractors and taking a condescending attitude. It's hard to believe someone like her could be a CEO, but rumors say it's a family-run business, and she took over from her retired mother. We've worked together before, but every time she would criticize our company for having high school dropouts, making it hard to progress smoothly. Will it be like last time? Feeling uneasy, I was reading through the documents when Mr. Johnson spoke to me. Chris, Emily will accompany you to the negotiation with Shiny, so be prepared. What? Emily? Why is she coming along? I had other colleagues in the sales department, so why was she chosen specifically? Oh, don't worry. Think of it as a learning opportunity. Mr. Johnson repeated. Since it was a direct order from the boss, Emily, who worked in the factory, would accompany me to the negotiation with Shiny. On the day of the meeting, we met in front of Shiny's headquarters. Chris, she called out. Though Emily didn't have her usual pigtails today, she still wore her large round glasses and a somewhat dull suit. "Morning, Emily." "Good morning. Looking forward to working with you today." "Yeah, likewise." "You seem troubled. What's wrong?" Had my expression been so obvious that even Emily noticed? "Well, I don't want to speak ill of our client, but Mrs. Brown, today's counterpart, discriminates against people based on their education." "Educational discrimination?" "I've been working since high school, but when Mrs. Brown found out, she said, 'A high school dropout is my business partner?' She always belittles me." "Wait, Chris, you're a high school dropout?" "Yeah, due to family circumstances." Emily looked surprised. "I guess high school dropouts are rare in her generation, too." "That's a coincidence. I'm a high school dropout too." "What?" Now it was my turn to be surprised. My father passed away early, and my mother, who was a homemaker, couldn't find a company which hired her full-time. She worked several part-time jobs to raise us, but her health deteriorated. So, as the eldest daughter, I chose not to go to high school and to work instead. Emily had a younger brother and sister, both currently in high school. Her dream was to send them to college. "You've had a tough time, huh, Emily?" I said, and she laughed. "Of course, it was tough. But because of that, I've been able to achieve my dream. Now, I'm ready to pursue the next one." She spoke brightly about achieving her goals and looking forward to the next one. She's a good person, I thought. Still, I wondered if working at a textile factory was really her dream. That question lingered in the back of my mind. Inside the meeting room at Shiny's headquarters, Mrs. Brown greeted us with her usual condescending attitude. "Mrs. Brown, thank you for having us. You are handling this?" "I don't like high school dropouts, and who is this plain, miserable-looking woman?" she rudely asked. "She's our new hire, accompanying me for training purposes." "We appreciate your understanding. I'm Emily. Pleased to meet you today." "Okay, then. If you want to present, do it quickly so we don't waste time." I swallowed my usual frustrations and took a seat across from her with Emily, pulling out the tablet and documents. Our factory could produce around the same amount as last time. I began presenting to Mrs. Brown, who was busy fiddling with her phone. She only occasionally muttered, or "I see," clearly not paying attention. Suddenly, music began playing from her phone. She didn't even look up and said, "I'm watching a video here. Let me know when you're done." "What?" I said, "Tell me when you're finished." "I'm watching a movie, and it's getting good." "Well, what is she talking about?" "We're here to discuss business," I said. "What? You got a problem?" she glared. "I have nothing but problems with this," I said. "Chris, you high school dropout," she continued, still not looking up from her phone, leaning her cheek on her hand. "You know today's project, right?" Yes. It's a collaboration with E. Monroe, right? You know how much revenue this collaboration could bring, don't you? That's why you're here begging for the job, right?" E. Monroe is a fashion designer who appeared suddenly like a comet a few years ago. Her designs are sophisticated, playful, and eye-catching. Her collections quickly became popular, and all their collaborations with various brands have sold out immediately. Her impact on the fashion industry is widely known. But her identity remains a mystery. "Well, yes, that's why we're here to discuss. I was told to gather candidates from various companies, so I'm just giving you some time, but I'll consider it. Once you're done presenting, you can leave. I'll get back to you if we decide to work together." Despite saying she doesn't want to associate with high school dropouts like us, Mrs. Brown kept watching videos on her phone, and I was bewildered. What does she think business is about? Her attitude had always been dismissive, but this time, she was worse than ever. Before I could figure out what to say, Emily, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Excuse me. Listen, just hear us out and then decide. That's why we're here." "Huh? Who is this?" I said, "Listen up. We're going to tell you about our product's strengths." Mrs. Brown finally looked up from her phone. "You know, someone like you probably doesn't understand, but honestly, the material doesn't matter. Customers will buy anything that looks good. Even low-quality products will be sold if the design is nice. So it doesn't matter which company manufactures it. Are you in the business of selling clothes but don't love them? Little miss, do you know what business is about? Where did you graduate from? I'm a high school dropout. What? I didn't go to high school or college. I'm a high school dropout. Mrs. Brown chuckled. Hey, Chris, you're a high school dropout too, right? Yes, I am. Chris, does your company only hire high school dropouts? You hired this plain, uneducated girl and expect her to talk to someone like me with a degree? I was getting angry as she not only insulted me but also belittled Emily. Yes, she's a high school dropout, but she's no amateur. She's been working hard at our company, learning everything she can about clothes and textiles. I brought her because I knew she could hold her own with someone like you. Despite your degree, it's not about holding your own. I just don't want to talk to high school dropouts anymore. Is being a high school dropout really that bad? Of course. Regardless of the circumstances, not going to high school means you'll never be able to compete with a college graduate like me. Emily, right? You should understand that you can't win against me. We're not even on the same level. If you can't accept that, I'll refuse to work with your company from now on. I was barely containing my anger, clenching my fists, and feeling ready to explode. Emily, you must be about 20, right? What have you been doing all this time as a high school dropout? Didn't you waste all that time? How can someone with just a junior high school education understand anything? The moment I heard those words from Mrs. Brown, something snapped inside me. Enough! I slammed my hand on the table and stood up. She's been working hard to learn. What does being a high school dropout have to do with it? You have no right to mock her. Apologize to her. What? Why are you suddenly? So what if we're high school dropouts? Does having a degree make you so special? Is there a law saying you can belittle us high school dropouts? By the way, it's us subcontractors that make your products. Without us, you can't produce anything, even with your degree. And I understand that as a high school dropout, too. Emily added, glaring. You know, saying that low-quality products are fine is unacceptable in this industry. Shame on you. Wah! As the insults flew, Emily held me back when I was ready to argue further. Chris, that's enough. Let's go. With one final warning to Mrs. Brown, you'll regret this, we left Shiny's headquarters. As soon as we stepped outside, I exhaled heavily and hung my head. Emily, I'm sorry for raising my voice and for showing you a failed negotiation. Why are you apologizing, Chris? Don't worry about it. But... Besides, Chris, I was really happy you got so angry on my behalf. No, I just couldn't stand those words because I know how hard you work, Emily. And you know, that Mrs. Brown is finished, she said with a sly smile. What do you mean? The next day, we received an official notification from Shiny saying they wouldn't proceed with the contract. And I was called to Mr. Johnson's office. Given my confrontation with Mrs. Brown yesterday, it made sense that Shiny decided not to proceed with us. I was prepared to be fired for angering such a major client. But he smiled. Mr. Johnson, I'm so sorry. No, don't worry about it. Besides, that collaboration between Shiny and E. Monroe won't happen. What? Why? And Chris, I heard from Emily. Thanks for protecting her. I appreciate you taking care of our valuable employees. No problem. Our employees are like family. That's what you taught me, Mr. Johnson. Since that day, Emily hadn't been seen around the office. I worried she might have been affected by Mrs. Brown's harsh words or disheartened by my outburst. I really messed up. Without the contract, I was pretty down. But a few days later, Shiny's website posted an apology. The collaboration with E. Monroe has been cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. When I saw that, I rushed to Mr. Johnson's office. Mr. Johnson. The collaboration between Shiny and E. Monroe. Oh, Chris, perfect timing. Mr. Johnson seemed to be talking to someone. I recognized those pigtails immediately. Chris, long time no see. Wait, Emily. I haven't seen you around lately. Yeah, I had some things to take care of and took some time off. So, you didn't quit. Seeing her again made me feel a little relieved. And Mr. Johnson, about Shinies. The cancelled collaboration, right? Yes. It's really been cancelled. Yeah, because I declined it. What? Her statement made me gasp. Wait, why did you? You see, this Emily is actually E. Monroe. What? Emily then shared her story. From a young age, she loved drawing fashion sketches and dreamed of becoming a fashion designer. She spent all her time drawing. Because of this, she was considered eccentric and had no friends. Like me, she suddenly lost her father. Her mother struggled with multiple part-time jobs while frequently falling ill. Emily decided to work instead of finishing school to support her sisters. She delivered newspapers while searching for an apparel store willing to hire a high school dropout. Eventually, she began studying and working her way toward becoming a fashion designer. In no time, her talent led her to start working as a freelance designer online. But her sister advised her to gain more social skills and broader fashion knowledge. So, Emily looked for a fashion-related company close to her home. That's how she found our company. She explained her situation and desire to learn to Mr. Johnson, who immediately agreed to help. Working here showed me how many people are involved in making just one piece of clothing. I understood that before. But now I realize firsthand that I can't do it alone. She then became known as E. Monroe and was set to collaborate with Shiny. But while working here, she began hearing negative rumors about Shiny. Emily thought she needed to be careful, so she consulted Mr. Johnson and decided to join the negotiation. Right after that meeting, she contacted Shiny to decline the collaboration. Shiny, of course, panicked. Understandably, they had already announced the collaboration and were in the middle of planning. At the end, even Mrs. Brown's mother, who was supposed to have retired, called me. She continues and are laughing. When Mrs. Brown's mother asked why, Emily said, "Can you ask your daughter for the reason?" She insulted high school dropouts and made us feel really uncomfortable. Sure, I'm a high school dropout. But tell her that I have the power to cancel this collaboration with Shiny. She smiled confidently. Because of the incident, Mrs. Brown was fired from Shiny. The cancelled collaboration caused significant financial losses. And she was ousted from the family. She once stormed into our office, hair disheveled, shouting, "It was all a joke. Tell E. Monroe to undo the cancellation, and I'll apologize." We immediately sent her away, and I never saw her again. About a year after the Shiny incident, Emily, known as E. Monroe, completed her training period at our factory and left the company. However, she still stayed in touch and frequently visited us. Without her work clothes, she looked even more fashionable, befitting her reputation as a renowned designer. Chris, I've got a favor to ask. That comment from Mr. Johnson led to E. Monroe exclusively using our factory for production. I became her primary point of contact. If this textile factory makes the product, I'll consider the collaboration, she'd say. Our company quickly gained recognition as the textile manufacturer endorsed by E. Monroe. Each time we received an order, we'd pour our hearts into it. I often attended meetings between E. Monroe and other companies. Her dedication as a designer was awe-inspiring. Recently, she secured a collaboration with the major brand Zorro, and I watched her handle negotiations firmly, never compromising. For every collaborations, she showed me many designs. All her designs was wonderful. She adapted her designs to the target age group of each brand, but each one was unmistakably identifiable as a creation of E. Monroe. Her playful designs were widely praised across all brands, showcasing her genius as a designer. The collaborative projects that the entire team tackled together with every order were successful at each brand company. The positive feedback from various companies raised our company's reputation, helping us grow significantly. I wondered if I had repaid Mr. Johnson in some small way. E. Monroe has really changed. It was the project manager, working with E. Monroe for the second time, who said this. Really? Yes, in our previous collaboration, she didn't offer as many ideas and used to say that all she cared about was the design. That's hard to imagine now. Now, she's much more collaborative and gives lots of input. She's become more sociable. The manager was confident that this collaboration would be even better than the last. It's probably because of what I learned working at that company. Sharpened by the field? That, but also when you, Chris, got so angry on my behalf with Mrs. Brown. I realized that you were really paying attention to my work. Well, I decided I wanted to be like that, someone who can fairly evaluate people. For that, connecting with people is important. My family says I've changed for the better too. Emily smiled as she said this. Now, she and I are a couple. Our relationship developed through working together, partly because we both shared the experience of being high school dropouts. When I told Mr. Johnson, who had been like a parent to me, he cried with joy, saying, "Finally, Chris has a girlfriend." Today, Emily wanted to meet my grandparents, so we're heading to their house now. We often faced prejudice because of our education. And as young as we are, there's still a lot ahead of us. When challenges come, we shouldn't look down on others, but instead, focus on doing our best with what we can do now. If we put in the effort, the results will surely follow. We know that if we keep at it, someone will eventually recognize our